Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the DLF Trade Show, the law of Dynasty trade value. And you will respect our authority. Yes.
Wow.
Cartman was stuck in my head this morning, and then it all came together right there. Boom.
I love it.
Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse, Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes_. Yeah, still senior contributor at DLF. Somehow he hasn't gotten fired yet, or at least demoted.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. We don't favoritism. It is what it is. Last week we did players to buy early if you think you're going to be competing this season, because it's always cheapest to be first to make your decision, because then when everyone else sees it, they're like, okay, there's like 3 teams. I can play these guys against each other. So only makes sense. Strike that, reverse it. Players to buy if you're rebuilding. Which, okay, it's the non-point scoring season. Youth matters. This isn't going to be easy. But we tried to pick players that are a little outside of the complete and utter obvious. Because going and telling you to buy 23 firsts and all of these rookie wide receivers, I mean, it's just like, well, duh. Yeah, okay. So we tried to step back a little bit from that. And let's go first to the player that Addison came to the conference. I almost said to the meeting or to the conference with. I'm like, we're not that classy, we're not that fancy. We just like, oh man, we have a show today. What should we be doing? But he came to the Slack chat, I guess I should say, with AJ Dillon in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I like this idea because there's 2 reasons. AJ Dillon, to me, I mean, I should be letting you talk because this was your idea, but I'm stealing it anyway.
No, go for it.
AJ Dillon is a great piece for both rebuilding and retooling, because when you're rebuilding, you don't usually think to buy running backs, but AJ Dillon is a player that has value, like right now, a little bit of value. He's going to score points this season, and like a lot of them. So either if you are close to the end of a rebuild and you want to go next season, AJ Dillon's a great guy to get because he is 24. 2 years left on his contract
this year and next year.
Yeah. And I believe Aaron Jones can be gone after this season.
Yeah.
So all of those things combined, go get Aaron Jones for this season, but go get AJ Dillon for the future, because if you want him for next year, awesome. If you want to trade him in 6 months, like 8 weeks into the season, you will super be able to, because I mean, who are they passing the ball to? So there's going to be a lot of usage out of the backfield, whether it's rushing or receiving. And AJ Dillon was catching the ball a little bit towards the end of last year. And I remember he stole one of Aaron Jones's receiving touchdowns, which would have won me a game if they gave it to the correct running back. Because I saw the touchdown, I start freaking out. And I'm like, wait, that's the wrong size and number. What's happening? No. Thanks for bringing that back up.
Love it.
Do you have anything to add to the AJ Dillon story?
No, I mean, I think you hit on everything perfectly with AJ Dillon. I mean, he's essentially like where we were at with Derrick Henry a few years ago behind DeMarco Murray. And, obviously we've seen how Derrick Henry is right now. I don't think AJ Dillon is Derrick Henry, but I mean, he has that kind of upside. Like if he were to be the starter, if Aaron Jones were to get hurt and miss like a significant portion of this year, AJ Dillon would probably be like a for sure top 10 running back, if not top 5. So that's kind of the upside that AJ Dillon brings to the table, just at, back end RB2 or even sometimes RB3 prices right now. And if you can get ahead of that curve, even if you're paying up a little bit more right now than what he might be worth, I think the value is going to increase exponentially moving forward whenever he does get that role.
All right, well, let's see what that price is to gauge what you think his value might be in a little bit. Well, if Aaron Jones gets hurt or whatever, value through the roof. But right now, I'm very curious to see this, because I clearly agree with your thinking, because I said it also and first. All right, so in a 12-team, 1 quarterback, the trade was Dalvin Cook for AJ Dillon and a 23 first. 23 first at 384.2, AJ Dillon 253.4 for a total of 637.7. Dalvin Cook 608.7 by himself, overpaying a little bit to get the most valuable asset. very fair trade. Oh man, give me Dillon in a first so easily. So easily. I love Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook will most likely score a very lot amount. He's going to score a lot of fantasy points this year. I don't care if they're going away from their run first offense. Honestly, that's probably better for Dalvin, less chance for him to get hurt. And people will, they have to respect the pass already because they have Justin freaking Jefferson on the team. But yeah, like make life easier for Dalvin Cook a little bit. That's fine. He will do very well when he gets the ball anyway. And let's face it, Alexander Mattison isn't stealing his job. He's not stealing any work. So I'm not worried about that at all. But still, if I can get AJ Dillon, who Dalvin Cook finishes as running back 3, AJ Dillon finishes as running back 9 through 12, even through like 14, and then you get a 23 first on top, again, could be very fair or could be really easily leaned on the AJ Dillon side, especially once you get past next season. So yeah, AJ Dillon the first easily for me. But again, that's just feelings wise. Value wise, I do think this is very fair.
It is very fair, but this is one of those ones again. If we're talking about you are rebuilding and you have Dalvin Cook, right?
That's very fair. Yeah, I just took this at face value, but yes, in terms of rebuilding, this is absolutely something you go do.
Right. Like what's more of a perfect trade than trading off your 26-year-old running back for AJ Dillon and a future first, right? I mean, we've already said that the upside, if Aaron Jones were to get hurt, the upside is Dillon is Dalvin Cook, or maybe even better. And then you get the 23 first on top of it. Like, even if Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon play at the same time every single game, like neither one of them get healthy, Dillon at least is still going to be a weekly flex asset for you, right? To which case then that's why the first is there, to make up that kind of value and production loss. But I mean, it's just so easily AJ Dillon and the first for Dalvin Cook that I feel like I would probably even do this if I was competing. I'd think a little bit more about it, but if I was competing, I'd try to do this, because this is one of those things where you set yourself up to still be a contender, but then also give yourself future longevity by getting a little bit younger at running back with similar upside and picking up that 23 first.
Oh man, again, super on board with this one. AJ Dillon for DeAndre Hopkins and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. AJ Dillon 253.4, DeAndre Hopkins a disrespectful 168.2, and MVS, I mean 54.5. I mean that's really low, but that still might be a little nice for him. Total of 222.7. So this is in favor of AJ Dillon on the value, and I don't think DeAndre Hopkins, this is such a bad sentence, is what he was last year. Like last year he got hurt and he was not 100%, but he was still out there playing. Mm-hmm. I also believe having Marquise Brown, because I almost said Marquez Valdez-Scantling again, on the team with Hopkins when he comes back after suspension isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like I'm sure Nuke is like breathing a sigh of relief that he won't have 3 men draped on his shoulders whenever he goes to catch a ball. Like Probably. This is going to be great. This is going to be like the best year of his life. But still, again, a 24-year-old running back over a 30-year-old wide receiver, yeah, this is the move to make. And MVS, find that person in your league that thinks, I'll know exactly when to play him when he catches that one deep ball for a touchdown. We want him to be a thing. He'd be great in best ball. I'm going to stop doing the fingers now. But yeah, MVS, you're never going to feel safe starting. Like I can't imagine it. So yeah, give me AJ Dillon, because DeAndre Hopkins' value is only going down.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah. I kind of highlighted this and picked this out as one of those trades that I think is a little bit on the cheaper end for AJ Dillon, but something that I still think can very much get done, especially, you're rebuilding and you identify one of the teams that's contending and you give them DeAndre Hopkins for what they might view as kind of cheap if they're giving away to them a depth running back for a wide receiver that they see as potentially could return to that wide receiver 1 form when he comes back from suspension for the second half of the season, use him for the playoffs and whatnot, and whatever you want to do with him as a contender. But like I said, I do think this is kind of on the cheaper end, but I still think it works out really, really nicely to where it makes sense for both teams. And you, as your rebuilding team, you're getting AJ Dillon and you're just giving up, shedding the age off of your team and just adding value for later on down the road.
Yeah, and also AJ Dillon is one of those players where people aren't usually lukewarm on him. It's either you like him or you don't. It's really worth checking out with all of those players, really, because there's a lot of players that are that divisive. And sometimes someone takes over a team. Sometimes it was just part of another trade just to get it done. They might not always be a fan of that player that is that divisive. Like Juju is another one of those. Mm-hmm. Like, oh man, one of the Juju trades that went down in one of the Trade Addicts leagues was just like hurtful. How disrespectful.
Well, it seems like every single one is disrespectful and hurtful. But
Juju and a third for Rondale Moore.
What?
What in the Juju disrespect just went down in my league was the exact wording I put in the chat after that happened. Now, don't get me wrong. I do really like Rondale Moore, and I hope he becomes a thing, speaking of the Cardinals offense. But no, that's not how you do that. That's no. Now we have to move on before I get angry again. 12-team super flex. Isn't that what we were talking? Nope, that was when we were 1 QB. 12-team super flex. AJ Dillon and a 23 second for a 23 first. So AJ Dillon 146.3. The second is 134.3 for a total of 280.6. The first is 384.2. Wow, that's further apart than I thought it would be. But I think I would send a first for AJ Dillon in a second.
Oh, you would?
I think. Well, here's the thing. I am doing the wrong thing and trying to convince myself that it's too far, these 23 firsts. And while for the foreseeable future, they're going to be insanely valued and they're going to be very highly valued, and they will still go up in value because they're draft picks. But like, it's like drilled into our head that if there's the number 1 there, you have your automatic stud. And I think when we get closer to the actual time of players declaring or players staying back, and we hit that at least 9, 10, 11, 12 area, we're going to be like, all right. Because like usually you're at that place where the 110 to the 2.4 is just like a tier. Mm-hmm. So if you're telling me I can drop back 6 spots and get AJ Dillon, that'd be cool. And because again, there is that huge mental factor of seeing that one. Of course, it's July, and some people even haven't even had their 22 rookie drafts yet. So you could be a full year away from this coming to fruition. But man, like I'm trying in the leagues. I have a 23 first where I'm still I'm not so far behind in a rebuild where I could feel okay trading away future draft picks. I'm trying not to hold them to that full value because honestly, you just can't get a deal done with that. And I don't know if you know this, but I have a trading problem, so I want to get deals done.
Right.
The wrong answer is saying, get AJ Dillon in a second, clearly, because the value is still pretty far apart. But in reality, I don't think it's that bad.
It wouldn't be bad if it ended up being, like you said, like this was a contender's first, not your first. Because if it's your rebuilding first, that's enough.
Oh, no. Yes, absolutely. Sorry. I keep forgetting how I'm supposed to be framing this. You do not send an early first to go get AJ Dillon.
Yeah, exactly. But if this is a contenders first, you've been rebuilding for this entire offseason. You've made a couple moves and you have 3 or 4 23 first round picks, and you are making a deal with a contender to try to give them their first back or something like that. I think I would be okay doing this because, like you said, at a certain point in the draft next year, AJ Dillon is going to be worth a first, I think, next year. And at a certain point, it might be 109, 110, 111, but if that's a contender's first range,
that's kind of what you're doing.
Anyway. That's kind of where you're at. And you're getting a second on top of it as kind of insurance that might not be the case to even out the value right now on where they both are. I've gone back and forth on if I would send a 23 first for AJ Dillon straight up, like if it was a contender's first for just Dillon. And I don't think I could send any first for just Dillon.
I need something back for sure.
Yeah, I would need that second to come back. But this is one of those trades that I feel like at the end of the day, you just got to make that decision yourself on how much risk you're willing to take on with predicting where that first is going to end up.
This next one is, I try to avoid rookies when looking for players because to me it was just too obvious. Like, go get rookies if you want to rebuild. But I saw this guy's name and I'm just like, I really want Trey McBride on all of my rebuilding teams, especially if there's any premium on the tight end position.
Sure.
Because I don't think McBride. Okay, let me reword that. I think there's a very small chance McBride, quote unquote, breaks out or shows out or whatever you want to say this season with Zach Ertz still being there. I know Zach Ertz will probably still be there next year, but I think once we hit next year, McBride will be a bigger part of the offense because rookie tight ends don't usually produce that well. But I think McBride's going to be really good in a team that has shown they want to use their tight end. Like they were feeding Max Williams and Dan Arnold and guys that are probably working at Walmart right now, just because they wanted to use their tight end. And you saw how good Zach Ertz was doing. And again, Zach Ertz is still good, but he's also like 31, 30, something like that.
Yeah, like 10 years older than McBride.
Yeah, and McBride, who's 22. You could have him on your team for the next 10 years. Never have anyone on your team for 10 years. That just means you're lazy. And again, his price is just so low. And again, it's outside of the usual because at tight end, you usually just sort of ignore when you're rebuilding for real. Unless you magically have like an option of getting Kyle Pitts at a non-stupid price, then yes, you go do that.
Right.
But yeah, let's go over this one. 12-team Superflex, a 23-second and Trey McBride, a 23-second and I'm going to read it. 23-second and Trey McBride for Dallas Goedert. Where was I? 23-second, 134.3. Trey McBride only at 27.9 and Goddard at 121.4. Losing a second isn't great, but I would so easily do this. I am
Trade Goddard?
No, trade away Goddard for the second and McBride.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, Goddard is only 27. Tight ends play until their early mid 30s. If they're, it's one of those elite players play till elite ages, and I'm not calling Goddard elite, but I'm calling him good enough that he'll last. And we've shown the Eagles are willing to hold on to their tight ends, even though they draft someone behind them. Like, how many years did we want Trey Burton to be a thing until they finally by the time they let Ertz go, there were other people behind him already. Like, we wanted Ertz to be a thing, but, I'm blanking on his name. He had a brother in the league also.
Selleck?
Yes. Like, they wouldn't let Selleck go, but he kept playing, and then he went, and then Ertz was awesome. And, like, even though they drafted secondary tight ends, they still let their old guys play forever. How many years was it? This is Dallas Goedert's year. They're going to let Ertz walk. Oh, they restructured. They're going to let Ertz walk. Oh, he restructured. Like, Howie Roseman just does not care what the salary cap is or means. Yeah, like, I mean, I super do that. Plus, again, you're getting a 23-second, which this is a super flex league. And assuming things go the way they are supposed to, we're talking 3 or 4 to 5 quarterbacks in the first round of rookie drafts. Again, assuming the world is what it's supposed to be. I don't necessarily know, but that's just what I hear from other people. And that's the case. If that's like the 202 to 205, you might be getting first round 1 QB talent in the second, like mid-second round. So I think this is awesome because there's a chance that Dallas Goedert is stuck in that tight end purgatory of tight end 5 to 27, where, okay, no, he's better than that. Like, he's always going to have a decent target share, but his upside is never really tight end 1. So why hold on to that when you could have Trey McBride, who in 5 years could be tight end 2 behind Kyle Pitts, because Kyle Pitts is going to be tight end 1 to the day he retires. It doesn't matter, right? Like, that's how that works.
Basically. Until that one kid from Georgia comes out.
And then that guy is tight end 1B. Sorry, Pitts for life, baby. That's what I'm learning. So yeah, I would easily trade away Dallas Goedert for McBride in a second. Again, assuming I don't need points. If I need points, man, I might do that anyway.
I was gonna say,
if there's no premium, I would do this in a heartbeat.
I think this is another one of those, just like the Dalvin Cook one, where you're trading interposition. And I would do this. I would 100% do this as a rebuilder. And I think I would also do this as a contender. I mean, I'm one of the people that I don't really view Dallas Goedert as a difference-making tight end.
Oh no, but tight end is like the one position. I'll take a steady player. I will take someone I feel safe plugging in every week, even though he's not difference-making. He won't lose me a week.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to have to take the dart throw on like hoping that Jared Cook catches a touchdown or something like that with Dallas Goedert, but Goddard also isn't a difference maker. So I'm very comfortable just moving him off, like trading him, and then seeing if I could get something better, down the road or anything like that, especially as a rebuilder. Trey McBride, I think, is also a really good tight end prospect coming in. And you get the second round pick on top, which I think is already worth Dallas Goedert. And you just kind of see what happens with McBride. And by the way, when you're in the trade analyzer and you're searching for Trey McBride trades, it's Trey with a Y. If you do Trey with TRE, then you get trades from 2017. So don't do that.
Wait, there was another Trey McBride?
Apparently.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's TRE. Trey McBride. He was a wide receiver for
apparently he was not very good.
The Titans.
I was hoping that would spark something, but no, I have no idea.
Yeah, well, don't TREY McBride.
Oh man, so here's another one I would absolutely do. A 23-second Trey McBride and Terrace Marshall for Brandon Cooks. 23-second is 134.3, McBride 47.6, Marshall 33.6 for a total of 215.4, Brandon Cooks 214.1. So this is a win because you're getting three pieces for one that completely fit what you're trying to do. And Brandon Cooks somehow is 28 years old. I could have swore that man was still 24 somehow. But wow. I
mean, this is another one, right? Where like, and it's funny too, because I saw this and I was like, man, this is somehow like simultaneously equal value for Brandon Cooks, but also if you're going for Brandon Cooks, this is kind of cheap for Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, because you're compiling that value to be able to get him, but to be able to get I love stack. I don't need to. Oh, this is one QB, so seconds are worth a little less, but still, I stick by my story. There's going to be good players in the second anyway. I love Trey McBride, and look, I'm not the biggest Terrace Marshall guy, but that team is going to be different with Baker as the quarterback than it was last year. I mean, there's a chance Terrace Marshall grows into it. There's a chance he becomes a thing, and at this price, why the heck not? 22-year-old, you're getting two 22-year-olds. That's awesome for a rebuilding team.
Future 22-year-old.
And a future 20. Yeah, fair. And Brandon Cooks, seriously, you can't do anything with him if you're rebuilding. On your team, he has no place. And honestly, to get more than a second feels great for Cooks, even though most people with Cooks on their team want more. I think it's insanely realistic to just settle for a second. So to get two dart throws on top of it, I think is great.
Right. Exactly. That's like a perfect breakdown of this.
Yeah, it's a good trade. So the next player was not on our list, but Addison went and inserted Elijah Moore into the sheet, who I honestly did think about, but I was going a little bit of not a safer route, but I think the reason I stepped off of Moore, because I think if Garrett Wilson does become the guy there, Moore's value will drop. Even though I think Moore is a great player and will do well, even if he is the wide receiver 2 on the team. I mean, there's a certain wide receiver 2 on a team that does just fine, just saying.
There's a few wide receiver 2s.
I'm so bad at this mirror thing to be able to go which direction.
Oh,
so yeah, I'm all about going to acquire Elijah Moore, but let's see how these trades make me feel about it. 12-team Superflex, Elijah Moore and Ramondre Stevenson for Mike Evans. I gotta be honest. I will always value Mike Evans more than the rest of the world does. I don't get why they've never. He had his rookie year. He jumped up to wide receiver 3. And then that was the year he scored 3 touchdowns. And then he bombed in ADP and just no one ever liked him ever since. Even though, again, he put up 1,200 yards and 3 touchdowns. The hate on Mike Evans never went away. So my initial reaction is that's not enough for Mike Evans, but 262.3 for Moore, Stevenson at 62.9 for a total of 325.2, Mike Evans 284.8. I mean, the analyzer has this as a good trade because overpaying a little bit for the more valuable asset. But yeah, 28-year-old wide receiver for 22 and a 24-year-old. and Ramondre Stevenson does have the ability to go
Dang,
up in
Ramondre's
value.
24. Holy crap.
What?
Ramondre's 24.
He is.
Yeah. Wow. Same age as AJ Dillon. Yikes.
Yes.
But Stevenson's been in the league for 1 year. He was a rookie last year. See what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but I don't understand why you're that entertained by it.
I don't know. I just think it's weird that he's 24 years old.
So is Najee Harris, probably 25 by now.
Yeah, ETN's up there too.
Moving on. Yeah, I see this going down in the real world. And honestly, I would have the same reaction I did when I saw it on paper. It was just like, oh, Mike Evans. But yeah, I think if I had Evans and I wanted to rebuild, Elijah Moore plus would probably be okay. And again, like to say I'm on the Ramondre Stevenson bandwagon is an exaggeration, but I think he'll be okay. And I think if Harris does miss a couple of games, Stevenson has the ability to spike, and maybe you move him for, I mean, if you can get a second for Ramondre Stevenson, that's like gold to me at that point. So yeah, I would do this. I think I would do this in both. No, man, would you send Moore and Stevenson for Evans if you were competing?
Probably not, because
Yeah,
I
I
see
don't think
more in
so.
Mike Evans's.
Like,
Nah, probably not.
I mean, the point difference is probably going to be a little sizable, but again,
Yeah.
Evans' value is never going to go up again. And
Right.
even though I did say Moore's value has a chance to go down as well, he's a 22-year-old wide receiver who, at least their team has shown they want that offense to work. So if he does play well, like we've seen him play well, then he should still be part of it. No, I think I stick with Mike Evans. Okay. But still, if I can get Moore and Steven, because we're talking about rebuilding, if I can get Elijah Moore and Ramondre Stevenson for Mike Evans, I think I do that. I'd be sad, but I think I do it.
Right. Yeah. From the rebuilding standpoint, I think this makes a lot of sense because, you know, you're getting a lot younger. You're basically hitting the reset button at the wide receiver position, which is fantastic because I view Evans and Elijah Moore as pretty similar. So getting the kicker of Ramondre Stevenson in, I think works out pretty well too. Another player who I think is a good flyer to go get if you're rebuilding as well, because Damian Harris, it doesn't really seem like he's on the final deal of his rookie contract. And it doesn't really seem like they want him back.
Oh, they don't pay running back unless you're like James White. They're not going to pay you. The Patriots are going to let him walk.
Right. So it seems like Stevenson could find his way into being the RB1 next year for a year or two, like Harris was, and before he's then kicked out. But you get the RB1 for the Patriots, I think, which has shown to be a pretty valuable position, you know, over the past few years.
It's been less of an insane timeshare than it has been in the past.
Right, like Harris had double-digit touchdowns last year. So if Stevenson can do that, plus with James White on his way out from age and injury, if there's more of a target share for Ramondre Stevenson, who's shown to be more of that pass-catching role than Damian Harris was, you know, you have opportunity there. But, I mean, focusing back on Elijah Moore, I think he's a player that, like, the amount of value that he lost after the NFL draft, I think is crazy, considering that we, like, all knew the Jets were going to take a wide receiver. Like, look, his ADP in March and April, he was in the third round of 1 QB startups. And as soon as the NFL draft happened, he dropped down into the 50s, which is back end.
I mean, that's a third round's a little bit, that was a bit much. Maybe he shouldn't have dropped to like 5-6, but.
Well, I remember because we were talking about him as like a mid wide receiver. Wasn't he like wide receiver 16, like a mid wide receiver 2 before the draft? And now he's wide receiver 27.
Don't expect me to remember things. Honestly, 27 feels right just because of the unknown outcomes. But I like that value for him because I think he's good.
Right. He's a player who we've actually seen do it. Like he did with multiple quarterbacks. Yeah, with multiple quarterbacks last year, and Joe Flacco too, and a little bit Zach Wilson. So I think that we're over exaggerating the effect that Garrett Wilson is going to have on Elijah Moore, and I just want to buy good players if I'm rebuilding. So I want Elijah Moore.
Okay, I accept that. Oh wow, this next trade. Oh man, I could already tell you what side I'm taking. So Team A, Joe Mixon, a 23 first, Elijah Moore, and a 23 third for Jonathan Taylor and Christian Kirk. All right, the Mixon side, 1086.9, Jonathan Taylor and Christian Kirk, 927.1. By the way, Jonathan Taylor by himself, 844.8. Give me that package side all day, every day. Oh man, like take out Elijah Moore and I might still take the other side. Like I'm all about downgrading from Jonathan Taylor at this point, but Mixon, who is 2 years older than Jonathan Taylor, just 2 years, 23 first, gold, super flex, 23 first. Elijah Moore, who, I mean, everything Addison just said. And I love me some Christian Kirk. I've dug myself into the Christian Kirk hole that I cannot build and climb my way out of. So even with running back 1, Jonathan Taylor, and wide receiver 1, Christian Kirk, it's still very easily the other side for me.
Yeah. I feel like it's like taboo to say you should be trying to trade Jonathan Taylor right now.
Oh no, I will scream that from the rooftops.
Yeah, I've been saying that as well, but it just seems like everybody's like, it's kind of like the Kyle Pitts thing. It's like, I have him. Why would I move him? Like, what's the point? Just take Jonathan Taylor.
If we had an extra half hour, I can start my rant, but we don't. It is weird to go for Mixon, but if you have an active enough league, you can flip Mixon right away. There's going to be someone in your league that wants Joe Mixon on their competing team because he's going to keep scoring points.
Right. Yeah, that's why I actually looked it up. I was in the process of looking like Mixon at 391. Who are some of the other players around him? Like, would you do this even if you weren't going to the running back position? Would you do this for DJ Moore?
Yeah.
Okay. If you wanted a younger running back, J.K. Dobbins is about 60 points below.
I love J.K. Dobbins, and he yelled at Ian Rappaport that he's going to be ready for week 1. So I am all in on J.K. Dobbins. Like, honestly, it's Mixon and a 23 first are practically the same price. So if you're telling me Elijah Moore 2 firsts for Jonathan Taylor and Christian Kirk, yeah, I do that.
Yeah, I think
I'll spend that.
This is like a perfect example of I'm rebuilding, but I have Jonathan Taylor as like this elite asset on my team. What should I be selling Jonathan Taylor for? That right there. And you can replace Joe Mixon with whoever you want, but that package.
Maybe if this was 1 QB, I'd feel a little differently because of those first. Like I would like to know where they are, or I would like to say a player in a first, like I said before, like just give me 2 first instead of like replace Mixon with a first. I don't know if I do that in a 1 QB, but this is super flex. So if you have an active enough league where you can then flip Mixon for, I mean, we were scrolling like AJ Dillon in a second, right? Like go back to that where it's like someone first for AJ Dillon in a second. So Mixon for AJ Dillon in a second is another great move. And then you're expanding the chances your team has to increase in value.
Right.
Or if you're 1 year away, just hold on to Mixon and just let him play next year. But he's going to score points so that if you're aiming for the 101, he's not going to help you there.
Right. Would you do this as a contender? Because I would.
Easily. I mean, Elijah Moore is going to outscore Christian Kirk. Sorry. I guess he's wide receiver too, Christian Kirk. And Joe Mixon's going to score really well. He's going to be top 5-6 running back, assuming health, which is always impossible to do, but I'm not going to pretend I can predict injuries. So yeah, as a contender, I'm trying to trade Jonathan Taylor no matter what, because doing something like this increases the value of your team exponentially.
Right.
And doesn't hurt that much in production. Like if Jonathan Taylor finished the season as the running back 3 in production, what not getting this hurts your team. If Jonathan Taylor doesn't do what he did last year, this not doing this hurts your team.
Amen. Glad we're in agreement.
That is like the summation of what my 30-minute rant would have been. Okay, we have in Russ's inbox. This is actually a trade I did. I accepted this yesterday, but it was a rough one. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of discussion on the TA pod yesterday about it. So I wanted to talk about this again. Also because I traded away Jalen Waddle and I hated it. It made me feel I hated the feeling. But I'll also explain the context after. So, Trade Addicts Leagues, 12-team Superflex, PPR, tight end premium with 1.75 points per tight end reception. And it's TA1, so there's no return yardage points. Team 1 gave away Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle, Ryan Tannehill, and Alexander Madison for Tom Brady, a 24 first, Ezekiel Elliott, and Allen Robinson. At least I got A-Rob coming back to me. That makes me feel a little bit better.
There you go.
So Waddle 496.1, Tanny 244.8, Madison 40.8 for a total of 781.7. Tom Brady 235.5, the 24 first 230. Zeke 221. Allen Robinson, 156.9. Keep rolling strong. A-Rob for a total of 843.4. This falls into everything we've said before. You overpay a little bit to get the most valuable asset, in Jalen Waddle being the most valuable. So here, my team in Trade Addicts 1 was not good at the end of the season. I did an outhouse challenge, and it just was not good for my team. And I do not have my 23 or 24 first because I traded away my 23 first and the 24 I lost in the challenge. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm not rebuilding. Let's figure something out. And I had T. Higgins and Jalen Waddle on my team. That was the Sophie's choice I was left with. I have to trade one of those two guys to make something happen. I stuck with my boy.
I get it.
And what scared me about this trade was, and what held me back for so long, is he did not want to give up his first. But trading a 23-year-old wide receiver who can easily walk into top 5-6 wide receiver ranking in ADP, trading that for a 44, 27, and 28-year-old. I was like, oh, well, if I don't win this year, I'm screwed. And if I do win, I'm still screwed, but at least I won, So right. I was making my, again, this guy who just took over this team yesterday is pushing himself towards a rebuild because you see the age he had on it. And I'm pushing towards winning because I have none of my own picks. So why would I bother not scoring points? The way I broke this down. Oh, also he still has Dalvin Cook on his team. So now he has Madison as well. So that helped boost the value of Madison a little bit, but we don't always have context in here, but it's my trade. So I'm going to put it in here. You can kind of cross out Tannehill and Brady to me, like value wise, they're close enough, whatever. So I crossed them out. Alexander Madison and Jalen Waddle for, well, let's even take Madison out of it. Would you trade Jalen Waddle for Zeke, A-Rob, and a 24 first? I stared at that for a long time. Well, the original trade didn't have the first, so it was Zeke and Allen Robinson for Jalen Waddle and Alexander Madison. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. I think the value is weird and off, even though it's not super off in the analyzer. It's only off by like maybe a third or fourth, like late second, early third. But like 27-year-old running back, 28-year-old wide receiver, I can't destroy my team like that. So we talked, and he agreed that adding a 24 first, while again he didn't want to give it up because he is sort of pushing towards the rebuild, made this trade still fair, but something I'd be willing to take. Like adding that 24 first clearly made it a more even trade. Yes, his team was giving up more value, but again, he's going for the most valuable asset. So like we talked it out, which is again one of the reasons I love actually trade talking as opposed to just back and forth with offers and just letting MFL do the speaking for me. And he added the first and we had a deal. So this was really, really hard to do because I love Waddle and because this is pushing your chips in. That's all this is. This is saying, well, this is the year I'm going to try and win it. And it was tough for me to make that decision, but I realized I don't have a choice.
Yeah. I've gone back and forth on how I felt about this since you shared it with me. From, man, I feel like I would just take Jalen Waddle and just call it a day, versus I know what you were doing because I knew which side you got, and you got all the veterans and stuff. And I know that you liked Ezekiel Elliott from last week. And of course, we both love Allen Robinson, despite what he did to us last year. And Brady's going to be a top 5 quarterback for one more year and then probably call it
until he comes back and plays again and
in Miami. Sure. Yeah.
Whatever.
And to me, what really solidified this for where I would take the side that you got with Brady, Zeke, Robinson was the first round pick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because I would take Jalen Waddle over Brady, Zeke, and A-Rob. Like I would just do that. So then you add the first round pick, and that makes it and gives it a little bit more insurance to where you are swinging for the fences, like you said, for a championship. I mean, you kind of have to be when you're acquiring Brady, Zeke, and A-Rob. But, you know, if you were to go far enough, but then just not get there, you have the insurance of the 2024 first still, you know, to where you can kind of figure things out and still have some value attached to your team in non-player form. So I'm okay with it. At Tannehill and Madison are kind of whatever right now. If you're swinging for the fences and going for a championship, you're going to take Tom Brady over Tannehill every single time, even if it's for just 1 year. So yeah, I'm kind of with you where it sucks, but I would do it. I'm okay with it.
Just to show that just because you don't feel great about it doesn't mean you didn't do a good trade.
Exactly. I mean, we've said that how many times now, where the best trades get done or where both sides feel like they won or where both sides feel like they lost.
I mean, I think he was sad to lose his first, but he was very happy to get Waddle. So I don't really know how sad he was about it, but other people take joy in my misery anyway. So the second I say I'm sad about it, they're happy anyway. So, but that was really fun. Especially this time of year, you don't get a lot of trades where you like buckle down and try and figure it out. Like usually it's just because everything's so hypothetical, it's just people have their made up values and that's just sort of how it goes. But like here, like we had a couple of back and forths, not like talking and just offers. It was just like as he was typing, I'm like click, 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 send. All right, before you say anything, look at what I just said. Like that's the stuff that's what I love to do. Like to me, that's what is so much fun about it. So even if I don't feel great about it, I'm glad we did it because it was fun to go through. And nice. Again, that's why I play in a lot of very cheap leagues because I can say stuff like that and not be sad about it because I didn't do something stupid and lose a whole lot of money.
Dynasty is fun.
Dynasty should be fun.
Exactly.
People that I can't understand people play high stakes. I just don't have the for that. I don't have the anxiety level low enough necessary for that.
Have fun. Just have fun playing in the leagues that you want to play in with the people that you want to play with. And yeah.
And senior contributor Addison Hayes said it on the DLF Trade Show. So it's the law. Brought it back from the beginning. On that superstar of a note, we have nothing left to say because that was just Russ Fisher at Dynasty Addison Hayes at Amaze Hayes _ DLF Trade Show. DLF YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.